Hey everybody, Mr. Clausen. Just wanted to give you a rundown on how we use LoggerPro, which we're going to be using quite extensively in this class. So to find LoggerPro, you go to Launchpad. This is the icon we're looking for. If it doesn't show up right away, you can always search for it. So just type in LoggerPro, and there you go. There's what we want. Now once you click on LoggerPro, what it'll do is it's going to bring up a screen that looks like this. Okay, here's our data table. Here's where we put our graph, and then this is referred to as the page. Now you can always drag these around, make them bigger or smaller as you want. More on that in just a minute. All right, first thing I suggest you do is always just title what your axes are going to be, or your columns. So in this case, let's go time. Short name for time would be T, and then we put in for units, we're going to put seconds. Hit done, and notice that it updates it here as well as down there. Double click on the Y. I wanted this to be distance. Now some of you might have been used to always putting it in parentheses like that with the unit. There's no need to do that, because if you set it up like so, LoggerPro will take care of that for you. So we put in distance meters. Now if I want to do something weird like say meters squared or something, what you can do is you click on this little button over here on the side. It gives you this menu, and you can do say meters squared as a superscript. Or we use Greek letters all the time, so perhaps you wanted a Greek letter like theta there. You could pick that one. It would put it in for you. You don't have to find it on the keyboard. Hit done. It updates it. Now, before we get too far, we also want to make sure we put a title on our graph. So to do that, double click on the graph. It brings up the graph options. Right now we're on axes, so just make sure you select graph options. It'll say title, and title it property. You always want to go Y versus X. So in this case, it would be distance versus time. And then hit OK. All right, now what we can do is start putting in our data. So I'd say at time equals 1 second, the distance was 100. At time equals 2 seconds, the distance is 200. I'm just going to make up some data points here. I'm sure you can figure out what the trend is, but you'll notice that as soon as we know the points, it puts them on the graph. So I had a little mistype there. Not to worry, we can always fix that later. All right, and every time I hit enter, it goes to the next thing. Now, if you just want to go down one rather than over, so if I hit over, it goes here. If you just want to go down one, so say I hit 7, but now I just want to go underneath. If I hit tab, misspoke, never mind. You have to hit the down arrow. So let's put 700 in there. All right, there we go. There's our data, plotted all our points. It looks to be like it's a pretty straight line, and one way we could test that is up here with this one called the linear fit option. So if we go ahead and click on that, what it does is it puts in a line of best fit for our data. If you take a look, the slope there, that can be very important. Y-intercept says it's 0.54 meters. And then it also here, this is a number we want to pay close attention to, and this tells us how good of a line of best fit our line of best fit is. The closer it is to 1, the better. Now the reason it's not perfectly 1 is, remember back here I had a little mistype, right? And so I put in 440 instead of 400. If I put that as 400, you'll see now that our correlation goes to 1, meaning the line hits the points perfectly. If I went back and I added this a little bit more and changing some of these values to not be exactly what they were, what will happen is you'll notice that the correlation value is going off a lot. Okay, the lower the correlation, the lower how well your line of best fits there. So you can see there with 500, I put it at 100, all of a sudden our correlation goes down. Really what you want to have is a correlation of 0.95 or 0.96 or better is what we're looking for in this class. All right, often we're going to want to have more than one graph. So what you would do is to get another graph or another data set in here, you just go ahead and say new data set. And what that does is it brings another column up here in your data columns. And really what you can do is you can take a look here, is it just recopies over exactly what we have. But these are different distances for the different data set, so it puts it in a slightly different color. Now I had some data saved before, so I'm just going to go ahead and put that in. But you'll notice nothing changed on the graph, or we have no other graph. So how do we get the other graph? Well, go up here to Insert, hit Graph, and it'll bring up another graph window. Now, you might take a look at that, and you'll notice that it's actually the exact same data as we had from data set 1, not the data here from data set 2, which is what we're looking for. And that's because we haven't told LoggerPro what to graph yet. So what you do is you come over to the Y column. If you click on it, come down here to More, it'll bring up the Y-axis options. And you'll notice that right now it's highlighting the data from data set 1. We want it to plot the data from data set 2. So you go ahead and unselect that, and then select distance from data set 2, and now what it will do is it'll start taking its data from this point over here. Okay, and there you go. Now you'll notice that this graph is really small. It's kind of hard to see what's going on, so you can drag it bigger if you want to on your screen. However, here's a feature that I like to use. It's called, under page settings, it's called auto arrange. A nicer way to work with this one though is you can just follow that keyboard shortcut, which is Command R. So if I click off here and I hit do Command R, bam, what it does is it puts the two graphs, everything is all neat and nice again. All right, let's take a look here at this second graph we made. It's still a little bit hard to see, like that data's down there. It's hard to tell if that's a straight line or not. So what I can do is I can drag it bigger and take a look at it. But still, all our data is down here and not where we want. Now, one way you can do it is you can hit this button here. It's called auto scale. And if you click on that, it will auto scale the graph, but it just zooms into where your data is. Another way to do this is you can just right click on it. And if you go to auto scale, what we want to do is we want to select auto scale from 0. And if you do that, it just makes sure it includes 0, 0 as one of your data points. Now when we take a look at this one, if we try to add a line of best fit to it, you'll notice that if we do a linear fit for this, it doesn't seem to fit very well. Our correlation is still pretty high, but we can just see by looking at it that it's above here, then it goes below, and then it's above again. So what this looks like is it definitely looks more like it's a curve, and therefore not necessarily the best line of best fit would be a linear relationship. What we're going to need to do with this graph is we're going to need to straighten it, but I will get to that in the next video. So I'm just going to close that out, and once again, bring my graphs back together. If I hit Command R, it puts the whole screen together. So that's that for now. I will show you more on graph straightening next time.